Alright, so this is a little tutorial on how to make custom NES graphics for glitchNES. Right now I'm just going to be covering the basics of how to edit the image, and we'll get into compiling the ROM a little bit later. So I'm starting off with one of my logos. Oh, and I wanted to apologize for the audio quality. Since I'm not working with audio, I don't have my typical audio setup, so you're going to hear a lot of like loud keyboard and mouse stuff. I apologize, but hopefully you get what you need to out of this. So first things first, I have my logo open. I figured we would kind of start here. And a thing that we're going to need to work with is the fact that the NES graphics are 256 by 240 resolution. That's made a little more complicated by the fact that there are palette restrictions and there are tile restrictions. So that resolution, when split into tiles of 8 by 8, gives you something like 960 tiles. But the storage in glitchNES only allows for 256 tiles. So you need a lot of tiles that are either redundant and can be used over again, or blank tiles, or you need to basically pay attention to that. And the other restriction is that there are palette restrictions. So you can only have basically 13 colors, and one of them has to be shared, and there are 4 palettes, so it has to be shared between. So for instance, we could make black a shared color in this image, and then the other colors could be, we basically have 12 other colors that we could choose from. And you can only use 4 colors in one 16 by 16 space. So one thing that's helpful, I'm using GIMP. You can use Photoshop, but this is free and this is what I know how to use. So I can go to Show Grid, and this will overlay a grid, and you can also go to Configure Grid, and this will show me, oh, I apologize because you can't see this window, but let me add this really quickly. So we can configure our grid to probably be a different color so that we can actually see it. And we can toggle between 8 by 8 and, for instance, 16 by 16. So sometimes I'll come in and I'll switch this around just so that we can tell what we're doing. One thing that you might notice is our grid, our image size is actually not where we need it to be. So I'll set this to 16 by 16 for now. And then I'm going to resize my image. So I need to scale my image down, and I need to make it so that there's no interpolation, because this is pixel art. So I only want it to keep the exact boundaries from where the pixels are, and I'm going to resize this to 240 by 240, because in general the top set of tiles, the top like first however many tiles, and the first row of tiles and the bottom row of tiles are actually kind of cut off by the TV screen, so you kind of want to not worry about those. So I'm going to first scale this image down to the size that it needs to be. So now my image is actually 240 by 240. And in fact, probably what I'm going to do is even scale it to be half as large, because looking at this now, and it's also not, this isn't going to work. I think the size of this is 400 by 400. It says 360 by 360, but let me double check that. I should really know the dimensions of this. Okay, so it's 360 by 360. So actually what I'm going to do is just resize this to be half. So it'll be 180 by 180. And that way we have a perfect scale here, and it looks how it's supposed to. And then what I'm going to do is take the image canvas size and expand that to the full resolution of 256 by 240. And we'll center this, set the canvas size, and then I'm going to set the layer to my image size, and then I'm going to fill in the rest of this with just straight up black. So now we have a good starting template for, and you can see a lot of these tiles are just going to be black, and then my logo is going to be in the center. And you can also see just by looking at some of this stuff that this row of tiles, you know, I might be able to save some space here if I just move this upward. So if I go back and I move this layer up so that this row is actually aligned with a set of tiles, now I can actually save some tiles, because these I know are going to be black, and these I know are going to be black. So I know that they're going to be redundant. Then again, you've got some here, and it's kind of a, it's not an exact science. You have to kind of feel your way around and make some adjustments as you go. So layer to image size again. Alright, so the next step is probably to reduce our colors. This is something that I always do, because a lot of times I'm working with an image that's not pixel art. And even pixel art, as it is, a lot of times uses like 128 colors or something that's pretty wild. So in order to do that in GIMP, you need to go to, what is it, image mode and indexed. So usually what I like to do is generate an optimum palette, and then I'll try to take it down to, I don't know, it's hard to say, because I definitely want black, I want white, I want blue, and I want orange, and I don't know about gray yet. So I might use black instead of gray, because some of the areas around where this, oh shoot, I need to show you this image. Some of the areas around this are going to be kind of tricky when you've got white, black, blue, orange, and gray all in the same general tile, and it might throw some errors at me. But for now, I think I'm going to take it down to like 6 colors. I'm not going to use any dithering, and we'll just see what it looks like. So this is the palette that it chose, and you can see over here we've got some colors, so I can choose, and you can also go in and edit these. So we've got, we don't have white, but we do have this color, which I'm going to change to white. So now we've got white, we've got this kind of grayish color, which I'm going to take the saturation all the way down to 0 to make that a pure gray. We've got this orange, which isn't really ideal, but it's okay because we only need estimates for right now. And then we've got this kind of color, which I'm not sure whether I want it to go. It's either going to be orange or it's going to be gray. I don't want it to be this kind of in-between gray color. So I think, given that I think it's closer to orange, I'm just going to copy this color and make this the same color. So I'm effectively reducing this image down to 5 colors. So the next thing to note is that the color map, and now that I'm looking at this, the next thing to note actually is that I don't think that this is going to be doable, and I might have to, because we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors. So I'm either going to have to make some big restrictions, like some big decisions about how to restrict color usage. Like here we've got, well, it might be doable actually. I'm just going to go through and look. So this is kind of maybe the next part where I'm sort of going to go through and, of course this is scaled up 4 times, so I might change the size on here, but just to make sure that I'm not exceeding the colors that I can exceed. So I want to make sure that in any, this is a 16 by 16 block, I only have 4 colors here. But the other problem is, remember we only have 4 palettes. So if we run out of palettes, you know, we might not be able to have all the colors that we want. I'm just kind of making judgment calls right now as to what I think will work best in each scenario. Even though, you know, I want to keep as much of the original art as I possibly can, you know, it may not be possible. And sometimes some of these things, they might just be a little bit too difficult to keep. And I also want to try to make it look consistent. I don't want too many strange artifacts. So I'm not really sure that I want to make these white. I might just opt to make them all this orange. And same with this. And like, I'm not a expert at this, so you know, my technique on making pixel art is a little bit sloppy. So we've got blue, gray, white, black. Now here, this is going to have to be, that can't be white because we're going to have 5 colors there. And then this is just, that's going to be extremely tough. Because if I move this is going to throw off the editing that I just did up here to try to keep all of these palettes in place. But you can already see this orange is going to be fighting. But we can try to move it down and see if we can still make this work, even given the fact that I just edited out a bunch of stuff that would have helped us, and vice versa. But actually, given that the blue border is here now, that might work a lot better. So that might have worked out okay. And this is just kind of my own preliminary work. Like, when you run the program, when you run the image into the program that converts the NES graphics from the image, it's called makechr. It will do a good job of telling you when you messed this up and when you have too many colors. This, I think I'm just going to make straight blue. The fewer colors that you have in any given space, the less likely you are to run into any errors, like if telling you that you have too many colors or too many palettes. So it just kind of makes the job easier to simplify if you possibly can. So I'm sure this isn't perfect, but it's a good starting place. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move this back into RGB so that I can use a different index, because I want to use a custom palette, and this is a custom palette. This is another reason that I like to use GIMP. Oh, this is the wrong NES palette. I have 2 NES palettes in here, but this is the one that I need to use. And this is the palette that comes built in with makechr. So basically it's just a text file, and it contains the hex values, or it's not hex even, it's actually decimal values for red, green, and blue for the like 50-something, 52 colors or whatever that the NES can actually output. And using this will make it a lot easier for makechr to know what colors to use, and it might spit out errors at you like you're using too many colors, etc. What this is just going to do is take the colors that we have and convert them to the NES palettes. Oh, I forgot. I need to show this again. It's the same thing as earlier. It's just oh, we've got it. Okay. So I'm going to hit convert and we'll see what we've got. Okay, so it looks the same. The colors on this look a little bit weird, but you can actually go over to the palette here and you can replace any of these. So like I might want to use this one instead of the blue that's on there, but be aware that depending on the TV and depending on the emulator that you're using, it might not be the right color. Like it might just be a different color entirely. So like I changed it to that, but I actually think that it's probably closer to this one. I'm just kind of guessing, and this, I don't know if this is the same. I think it is. And in fact, this gray, that gray might be too dark. I might need to use a lighter gray. I might need to use this gray. Which I think it's a little bit lighter. So now I have an image that I think is probably ready. Whether there are too many tiles, I won't know, because I leave that up to the software to tell me if there are too many tiles. So I'm going to go ahead and take this and export it to my PNG file that I want to use. And now I'll load up make CHR. So let's bring this up, if I can here. Alright, so now I'm looking at make CHR, and I'm going to go ahead and load my file, my PNG file. So here's the image, and it's loading it up, and this is very, very typical. So what you're going to see is these little red boxes, and it's going to tell you the error in the lower corner of the window, and it's going to say palette overflow error. So when I check here, I can see, oh yep, I've got a white pixel here. I've got gray. So I either need to make a choice of whether this is going to be gray or white, and I'm choosing to make it gray. So I'm going to color that in. And then if I export it again, it'll automatically update and make CHR, or it should anyway. Well, I got an error. Okay, so it came up there. So now that one's fixed. So now we come over here, palette overflow error. So sure enough, if I look down here, I've got a bunch of, I've got a lot of gray here, essentially. So this might be a little bit harder to fix, because unless I want this to either be all gray or all white, I'm going to have to make a choice. But I think I'm just going to choose to make it all gray, because for the purposes of number one, demonstration, I might make this blue actually. Number one, demonstration, and number two, it's never going to be perfect. It's not. Let's go ahead and look at the other errors while we're here. Oh, I forgot. I can't. This is not easy to toggle between these windows, so you probably can't see what I'm doing. But then I'm going to look at this one. Same kind of thing. So we've got a blue. This one's easy to fix because I'm just going to make this gray. That's hardly going to be noticeable. So, and also actually over here, looks like I can actually choose to make this one blue. And then I've got one over here, which is a white one, and I'm going to make this one gray. And now I'm going to export it again. And look at make CHR. Have I fixed all my palettes? Yes, but I'm still not getting anything. So this is a problem with make CHR. Not all of the errors are displayed in the window right now. So I'm going to go ahead and run this from the command line. Where am I at? So next things next, there were errors that occurred, so I'm going to take a look at the log file, which is make chr.exe.log. and it says, I would show you this, but I'll just read it. Found one error, too many palettes error. So essentially it's trying to make a palette, but it's looking for two palettes where there should be one. Essentially, we have too many combinations of these 5 colors in my image, and it can't reduce them all because it wants to make one shared palette, but it can't. So that brings up a bit of a conundrum, because we know we need orange, white, black, gray, blue, white, black, gray. Those are pretty simple. Then we need orange, black, gray, blue. Orange, black, gray, blue. And probably orange, black, white, blue. Orange, black, white, blue. So somewhere we're getting a combination other than what I just described. And it's having a lot of trouble trying to decide what that combination should be. The other issue that might be happening is if we were to have too many colors here, like some gray wasn't actually gray, it was like a different shade of gray, but one of the pixels was off. That's happened to me so many times I can't even tell you. But I'm not really sure, honestly, where this should be occurring, because the only way for me to be able to tell is to look at the NES palette itself. So I'm going to do that, because I need to know which colors we're choosing. So 0F is black, 00 is gray, 21 is blue, 28 is orange, 30 is white, 21 is blue, 0F, okay, 30, 28, 21, 0F. Merge 2D and 0F. Oh, I see. Something about the gray is it's trying to interpret it in a problematic way. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Well, we've hit a roadblock. This happens a lot. This really happens all the time, and it's very frustrating, and this is why I don't like to do NES graphics. It's still the same error. So that's really funny, because I would have thought, like, it must be something to do with the tiles, but it's definitely not. Too many palettes. Merge 2D0F. Is somewhere it thinks that there's the 2D color in there, which is this gray over here. But that color shouldn't be anywhere in this image, which is kind of crazy to me. Let's change this back to what it was, I guess. The thing is that you can actually change the color in the NES code itself. Like you actually have to, because of the palette colors. Like it wouldn't matter necessarily what color these actually get saved as in the PNG file. What matters the most is that we got it. All right. So all I did was change that gray color, and now it's able to pull it in without any problems. So there you go. That just shows you that sometimes things are just a little bit crazy. So now we've got our name table layout. This will show us exactly the number of the hexadecimal wavetable, and wavetable. Gosh, name table. So we're using about 149. Yeah, it tells you 149, and this little map shows you where the same tiles get reused because it detects automatically. So yeah, so this is the first step to getting your glitchNES, just to make sure that you can import it into Make CHR. From here, you can save, and it'll save these as the binary formats, and you can also export binaries or compile to a ROM to just run it in an emulator. So if I were to compile this to a ROM right now and just, hit save it, and just run this briefly just to show you what the output of this is going to look like in FCUX. My computer is struggling because there's a lot going on right now. So I've exported this to an NES binary, and I'm just running it on the emulator, and it looks like this. So that's pretty good. That's almost exactly what I want it to look like, and it's a pretty faithful representation of the logo that I've got. So that's step one. Step two, step one takes a long time. Step two is a little bit more straightforward, so I'll do that in the next video. Thanks for watching, and let me know if you got any questions or if you got any problems. I'll be happy to help.